Hey guys, tonight we wake before the sun, before the river starts its murmuring, before even the roosters are fully committed to their morning declarations. You're curled up beside a warm wall of mud brick, and the smell that rouses you isn't coffee or lavender or whatever today's influencers recommend. It's the sour, earthy scent of yesterday's ashes and fermenting flour. Congratulations, you've been hired, probably unpaid, to spend a full day in an ancient Egyptian bakery. You probably won't survive this. You'll sweat, squint, burn your fingers more than once, and develop a suspicious respect for grain grinding grandmothers with forearms like temple columns. But that's okay. You're here for the story. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're already tucked in, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. I love seeing how far this sleepy little channel travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It's dark still. Not the ominous kind of dark, just that early softness before the sky decides what color it wants to be. The ground beneath you is dry, packed, scattered with stray barley husks. The air smells like smoke that forgot it had somewhere to be. And from behind the low wooden gate, you hear the steady scrape of someone already working. You shuffle into the main courtyard of the bakery compound. It's small, rectangular, and open to the sky, its walls streaked with soot and years. There's a bread oven tucked into the corner, a dome of baked clay that still breathes faint heat from yesterday's final loaf. A few baskets sit overturned beside it, their weave loose in places mended with strips of palm. A woman looks up from her pile of kindling. She doesn't greet you, she nods, which is louder than words here. You nod back. That's enough. She gestures toward the coals. You squat beside them, careful not to brush your leg against the smudged base of the oven. It's still warm. Your first task, stirring yesterday's embers. Not stoking stirring, there's a difference. You take the long clay paddle and move it slowly, letting the ash drift, letting the coals reawaken without snapping. Sparks flicker like sleepy fireflies. You wonder how many bakers have done this before you. 1,000, 2,000 each, with the same stiffness in their shoulders, the same soft curse under their breath when ash blows into their nose. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptian bakeries were part of households, temples, or state granaries. The answer is yes. All of them. Bread was currency. Bread was offering. Bread was medicine. Bread was how you paid the crew digging your afterlife mansion. And here you are, earning your keep one crust at a time. The first heat takes hold of the oven slowly. You feel it before you see it. The way the air shifts slightly becomes watchful. One of the older bakers brings a shallow bowl of fine sand and scatters it at the oven's base. Not for traction, for timing. When the sand warms, you'll know the oven is ready. It's barely morning, but everything has already started. The fire, the grindstone, the quiet ballet of people who work in rhythm, not conversation. You're not alone either. A boy no older than 10 is sweeping flour dust from yesterday off the bench into a clay pot. A woman with white streaks in her braids is kneeling at a woven mat, checking for insects in today's barley. Another is stretching a sheet of cloth over a mixing basin to protect it from flies that haven't even woken up yet. This is not a loud place. It hums. You take a sip from the communal pot, warm water bitter with natron. It'll help keep your stomach calm when the flour starts flying. Above you, the sky finally begins to glow barely. Just a wash of pale pink, like the clay bowls before they're fired. And you know that before long, this compound will be full of heat, laughter, argument, smoke, spilled grain, and the occasional crust flung at a cat. But for now, the coals breathe, the flour waits, and so do you. Because in 5 minutes, the grindstone starts, and your arms are not ready. You don't remember sitting down at the grinding bench, but somehow you're here now, knees tucked under a smooth slab of stone palms, already coated in fine flour dust. It gets into your fingernails, your nose, even your thoughts. Across from you, another baker, older, stronger, with a forearm like a carved pillar, gives you a small nod and begins. You mimic her motion, back and forth, back and forth. A large, heavy upper stone oval, almost like a flattened loaf, rubs against a lower stone grooved from years of use. You pour a scoop of barley across its center, and it starts to hum, not loudly, just that low, dry scrape of grain surrendering to stone. This will take hours. You settle into it slowly like a warm bath that smells a little too much like toasted straw. Your arms complain immediately. Not loudly, just that whisper of lactic betrayal that says, "You didn't stretch first, did you?" You try to shift your grip, then you give up and just let the rhythm carry you. Back and forth, back and forth. It's not glamorous, not sacred, just necessary. Across the courtyard, another woman is grinding emmer wheat, harder to work with, but better for ceremonial loaves. The difference between barley and emmer isn't huge to a modern palate, but here it matters. Emmer's denser, gummier, a bit more stubborn, kind of like the nobility who prefer it. You ask why they don't mix both grains together. The woman across from you chuckles without looking up. Because the gods know. You stop asking questions. As your flour pile grows, you begin to notice the scent shifting. Not quite bread yet, but something close. Raw and dry, like a promise of food, or the memory of food. The courtyard is brighter now. Someone has tied back the door curtain to let in light. Cats dart through the edges of the space like it's theirs, which frankly it is. A boy brings over a bowl of roasted date pits. You think it's a snack. It's not. They'll grind those too, your partner murmurs, into powder. Makes the flour stretch further, and suddenly you realize how resourceful this world is. Nothing is wasted. Not old pits, not yesterday's crusts, not even the leftover ash from last week's bake, which is drying in a shallow basket to be used for lining the oven floor. Historians still argue whether this constant reuse was about thrift or ritual. Some say it was economy. Others say the ancients believed that memory made ingredients stronger. That grain remembered the hand that ground it, and fire remembered the shape of the last loaf. You glance at your hands. They're white with flour, drying out. You're offered a smear of oil from lotus seed or maybe pressed fig, just enough to coat the palms and let your grip stay strong. You rub it in. It smells faintly sweet like sun-warmed wood. Back and forth, back and forth. The sun finally spills into the courtyard in full. Now the pace picks up. Another pair of bakers joins you. More grain is brought. Your stone is lifted, scraped, checked for rough spots. A boy with a cracked reed stylus records something on a palm strip. How much flour you've made? Who knows? Then someone laughs. A woman across the way holding up a flat loaf with a hole right through the middle. A cat tried to steal it mid-bake. It succeeded. Everyone mutters, half annoyed curses, half amused blessings. You stretch your back and are told gently that break time is not yet. So you grind more. Your arms are tired, but your motion is smoother now. Automatic. Almost musical. You could do this forever. You don't want to, but you could. A handful of barley grains fall beside your knee. A cat investigates. You both pretend not to notice each other. By late morning, your flour pile is considered respectable. Not perfect, not impressive, but enough. The older baker across from you gives the faintest grunt of approval, which in this world is basically a standing ovation. Your grinding stone is lifted, wiped down, and leaned carefully against the wall. You stand. You stretch. and you realize that you've been sitting for 3 hours without noticing. The flour is carried away in baskets lined with linen. It'll be sifted next, then mixed, then shaped. You watch it go like a child watching their drawing be pinned to a wall. It's not yours anymore, but it will become something. And later, when the loaves rise and crack and bloom in the oven's heat, you'll smell them and think, that was mine. Even if no one else knows it, the flour is gone now. Lifted into a wide clay basin and carried off toward the mixing bench by two barefoot workers who somehow make lugging 40 pounds of grain dust look graceful. You trail after them, sore-armed and soot-dusted, to the second station in your new life as a bakery apprentice dough. This is the part where things get wet. Really wet. One of the older women, stoic, sun-lined and terrifying she once threw a rolling pin at a priest kind of way, hands you a narrow strip of linen and tells you to tie back your hair. You do. Badly. She fixes it for you with a sigh and a knot that feels both insultingly tight and impressively secure. Then she points to the basin. You look inside. It's not elegant, it's not poetic, it's not even bread yet. It's just flour and water and salt and something slightly sour that smells like both riverbank and apples gone slightly wrong. This is the dough starter, you're told, known simply as the mother. The mother lives in a clay pot. She is kept warm, fed daily, and never questioned. Today she will feed the loaves. You remove your sandals, roll your linen tunic to your knees, and yes, step into the basin. Because in ancient Egypt, dough wasn't always mixed by hand. Sometimes it was mixed by foot. The flour is dumped in by the basketful. Warm water drawn from the well, filtered through linen, and cooled in a jar pours over it in slow streams. Someone adds a pinch of natron salt. Another stirs in a palmful of the sour starter, already bubbling faintly. Then the woman beside you says, "Go." You start to walk in place. It's slow going, the dough resists, clinging to your feet like a child refusing bath time. It slurps, it sucks, it tries to trip you, and yet you find a rhythm. Knee down with the ball of your foot. Shift your weight, lift. Repeat. Someone adds more flour, someone adjusts the basin so it catches more sun. The warmth, they say, helps the dough breathe. Historians still debate whether this technique was strictly necessary or more ceremonial. Some suggest hand kneading was too inefficient for large batches. Others believe foot kneading symbolized life-giving, the human body stirring sustenance into being. You're too busy trying not to fall to debate. Your calves are shaking. Your toes are coated in sticky dough. You're beginning to sweat again, not from the heat, but from the absurdity of feeling like a grape being crushed for wine, but somehow with more judgmental spectators. Faster, someone says. You try. The dough splashes. You hear giggles. You glance up. 3 children, tiny smug, are watching from a wall ledge, clearly enjoying the show. One holds up a fig and bites it dramatically. You keep going. Eventually, the woman taps your shoulder. You stop. She squats beside the basin, plunges both hands into the dough, and pulls it upward with practiced ease. It stretches like softened wax, thick but smooth, dotted with bits of hull and husk. She nods. It's good. You exhale in relief. You're told to step out and sit on a stone to rest. A boy rinses your feet with a jug of cool water. Another wipes the edge of the basin. The mother apparently approves. Now comes portioning. This is its own sacred mess. The dough is divided by hand into lumps, then into smaller lumps, then into oddly specific shapes. Some round, some oblong, some twisted like ropes, others pinched at the corners like dumplings. Each shape serves a purpose. Some are offerings, some are for workers. Some will be wrapped in leaves and buried in hot sand for hours. And some are shaped like birds or fish or little seated gods with faint smiles. Bread in this world isn't just food, it's message. Some loaves are meant to be broken. Some are meant to be buried. Some are never meant to be eaten at all. The woman shaping the bird loaves hums as she works. She doesn't measure. She feels the dough, weighing it with her palms, adjusting moisture by instinct. You try. Yours looks like a sad shoe. She doesn't say anything. She just reshapes it in a blink and places it beside the others. You'll try again later. The shaped loaves are placed on reed mats to rise. Cloths are draped gently over them to keep flies out and warmth in. You crouch beside them, watching them ever so slightly expand the dough, dimpling and smoothing like a sleepy animal stretching. You lean in. The smell is already changing. It's not just grain and water anymore. There's life in it now. Fermentation. The quiet magic of air and time and microbial willpower is doing its thing. And you helped. Your calves ache. Your toes itch. Your tunic is flecked with flour. And still you sit there smiling slightly because this dough, this wobbly, rising thing carries a piece of you in it now. Tomorrow someone will eat it and never know you walked it into existence. But that's okay, because you will know. The sun is climbing now. Slow but relentless. And the smell in the courtyard thickens into something both cozy and a little wild, like raw bread dough left too long on a warm shelf. This is the part where things get uncertain, alive, a little unpredictable. Because now it's time to leaven. The shaped loaves, coiled, rounded, pinched, sit quietly under their linen veils waiting to rise. Some already show tiny bubbles at the surface, the skin puffing just slightly. Others still look drowsy. And every single baker starts watching the sky. Not the loaves, the sky. Because in ancient Egypt, leavening wasn't just science, it was weather. A warm day. Your loaves might double in an hour. A cool breeze off the river. Half the batch may stay flat. The gods, it seems, have opinions on bread. You're told to lift one of the cloths. You do. It's slightly damp underneath. And the loaf beneath is breathing, not literally, but close. Its shape has softened. The dough is rising like a tide, slowly engulfing its own form. Someone nods. It lives. You've never wanted to high-five a blob of flour before, but you do now. Near the oven wall, a pot is uncapped, the mother. You approach carefully. Inside, the starter bubbles faintly, a tangy cloud rising up like the breath of a very specific ghost. It smells like sour apples, ancient caves, and vinegar made by moonlight. You ask, how do we know when it's ready? An older baker grins without looking up. It talks. You wait, nothing happens. She shrugs. It'll talk when it wants to. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians understood yeast the way we do. Probably not in the microbe sense. But something told them that if you left flour and water alone, in the right place, at the right warmth, with the right attitude, something magical or at least edible would happen. Some texts refer to this as capturing air. Others simply call it Tijes, the life that rises. A girl, near the back of the courtyard, swirls a long stick into the starter pot, then uses it to mark a circle onto a flat round of dough. No one tells her to stop. You realize this is how recipes survive here, not written but done. Again and again, until the bread remembers the hands that shaped it. One of the bakers lays out smaller clay pots near the rising loaves. You peer inside. They're full of something, each with a crusty layer on top, some darker, some paler, some with flecks of herbs or ash. These are the flavor starters. Mini experiments in fermentation. Each one a legacy from another day, another meal. You're told to pick one. You choose the one that smells like dried lemon and wet linen. A good choice, apparently. You scoop a small amount with a reed spoon and knead it gently into a new lump of dough. It stains the surface slightly. A soft swirl of color. Someone grins. You made sun bread. You ask if it's for offerings. No. For the night watch helps them stay awake. You hadn't expected that. There are categories of loaves here. Offerings for temples, perfectly shaped, beautifully smooth, mostly symbolic. Feeding bread for workers, hearty crusty, slightly burned at the bottom. Medicinal bread often soaked in beer used for stomach aches. Special loaves for travel. For dreams, for funerals, for weddings, for luck. And always starter bread, the loaves made to create tomorrow's leaven. You begin to understand that bread isn't just food, it's time. Folded, flavored, and baked into shape. The courtyard begins to smell richer now. Not sweet, but full. Like the world's been waiting for you to notice this one perfect scent. And now, it's letting you have it all at once. Loaves are rising, slowly. You help adjust the cloths. Some are too damp now. Others need to be rotated. The heat in the courtyard creates pockets of inconsistent warmth. So the baskets are moved in careful circles, like sunflowers chasing the light. You're told to sing. You blink. Why? It helps the dough rise. You think it's a joke, but everyone's already humming. You join in. A low, meandering tune, no words, just vowels. You hum it as you turn the loaves. And the strange part is, it feels like it works. Something in the air grows lighter. One small loaf rises faster than expected. Another bursts at the seam. Not perfect, but alive. And then as you lean over to adjust a stubborn round of barley dough, a whisper behind you. It's talking. You turn. The mother has bubbled over, slightly dripping a foamy ribbon down the side of the pot. The oldest baker claps once. Now we bake, just like that. No timer, no scale, no checklist. Just trust. The loaves are lifted gently, carefully. The bottom of each is tapped with a fingernail. A soft, hollow sound means it's ready. A dull thud means wait. You listen, you choose, you feel confident. And then, quietly, someone hands you a flat woven board. On it, your first solo loaf. Raisin, wobbly, slightly lopsided, but unmistakably stubbornly yours. You're standing in front of the oven now. The heat pulsing outward like breath from a beast that's only pretending to sleep. It's squat and domed, half clay, half fire, half dare. The opening is wide enough for your arm, but not much more. The inside glows faintly red, at the core orange near the mouth, layered with soot and memory. This is the sacred part, not because it's quiet, but because it's hot. One of the baker's face, already glazed with sweat, lifts a long paddle carved from date palm wood. She slides it gently into the mouth of the oven, scrapes yesterday's ash into a basket, and says something that might be a warning or a prayer. You're told to bring your loaf. You do handshaking slightly. The paddle is lined with a thin scattering of sand, white, fine, shimmering faintly in the light. You ask why. So the bottom doesn't stick, someone mutters. And the gods like the crunch. You hope they mean metaphorically. Your loaf is placed on the paddle. There's no ceremony, but your heartbeat insists otherwise. It wobbles slightly, still sticky at the base. The baker nods. Good enough. She slides it in. It disappears into the glow. And just like that, your loaf becomes someone else's responsibility. The oven groans softly as more loaves follow. Flat discs, plaited twists, pinched bundles shaped like lotus buds. There's an order to the loading invisible to you, but obvious to the bakers. Some loaves need more heat, some need time, some need to be rotated halfway through or brushed with water, and one needs to be whispered to before the door is sealed. You don't ask why. Across the courtyard, more baskets arrive, dough that's risen faster than expected. Possibly thanks to that accidental sunbeam that warmed the west wall. More loaves are shaped, more trays lined with sand. You watch as an offering loaf is formed. It's small, round, no frills. But the baker presses a single thumb into the center before baking. A mark for the gods to recognize. You're allowed to try the same. Your second loaf rounder this time is pressed gently into shape and given the thumbprint. The dough sighs beneath your touch. You whisper just for fun. You better not burn. One of the bakers laughs. They hear you more when you doubt. You're not sure if that's encouraging. Then comes the smoke. Not thick, not choking, just enough to blur the edges of the scene, to make everything feel wrapped in warmth. It smells like old flour and hope, like breakfast for someone you love. Historians still argue whether these ovens were communal or private. Some suggest state-run bakery complexes. Others believe neighborhoods shared one oven rotating axis based on need, luck, or bribery. There's even debate over whether offerings were actually baked or just staged for the smell. But here the bread is real, and so is the sweat on your back. The baker beside you cracks the oven side with a stick. A signal. Rotate. The paddle goes in. One twist, a shift, a lift. Another loaf flipped entirely upside down for extra crunch, someone explains. You peek inside and see your loaf now puffed and browned and utterly changed. It's working. You can barely believe it. The air thickens. The scent grows rounder, fuller, more alive. And you begin to understand why the Egyptians believed bread was divine. It creates itself. You shape the grain, you mix the dough, you stir the starter, you stoke the fire. But at a certain point, the loaf becomes more than you. It decides. It rises. It lives. And when the oven door is opened fully, and the baskets are filled with warm, uneven, crackling shapes, the courtyard exhales. Not relief. Completion. Your loaf is pulled out with tongs wrapped in linen. It's placed on a reed mat. You tap the bottom. Hollow. Perfect. You grin like an idiot. No one says anything. But someone passes you a bit of honey on a fig leaf. That's praise enough. The loaves are sorted quickly. Offerings are set aside, placed in tall baskets lined with clean cloth. Meals for the crew are packed into shoulder sacks and sealed with twine. The broken ones, burnt, cracked, weirdly shaped, are stacked for reuse, grinding, or hungry cats. You're told to choose one for yourself. You take the misshapen one, the one that rose sideways with a little burnt tail at the end. You bite in. It's chewy, a little sour, very warm. And despite everything, it tastes like victory. The air is different now. Not cooler, just settled. The loaves have been pulled. The worst of the heat has passed. And the oven sighs like a tired ox who knows the plow will return tomorrow. You wipe your forehead on your sleeve, taste salt, and sit for the first time in hours. But don't get too comfortable. The first bake was just the beginning. You're not done until the gods have eaten, which is tricky since they never show up in person. Still, their loaves are ready. A dozen perfect rounds and spirals cooled on reed mats covered with linen, dyed faint yellow from turmeric or saffron. Each one is flawless, symmetrical, smooth, evenly browned, and most importantly, whole. No cracks, no nibbles, no oops, I dropped it. You're handed a jar of incense paste and a stylus carved from bone. Your job: mark each loaf with a sigil. Not deep enough to ruin the crust, but firm enough that the scent of the incense mixes with the steam when the loaf is broken later at the altar. You pause. May I do this? The baker nods. You touch the dough. You mark the breath. There's poetry in that, though your hands are shaking too much to enjoy it. You trace a looped cross on the first round, a stylized bird on the second. The third, you just follow the faint lines someone carved in with a thumbnail, an ancient cheat code. Each symbol calls a different god, Hathor, goddess of pleasure and nourishment. Osiris of renewal. Even tiny loaves shaped like eyes meant for protection. Historians still debate whether these loaves were symbolic or truly consumed. Some were buried with the dead. Others were burned or crumbled into sacred beer or tossed into the Nile with solemn chants. But here in this courtyard, they are presented. You carry the tray not alone, of course, along a tiled path that leads to the tiny shrine near the granary's eastern wall. It's shaded by fig trees and flanked with worn statues of falcons and crocodiles. The priest is already there fanning flies away with a stiff bunch of reeds. He does not greet you, he just nods. The tray is placed on the offering table. Stone cracked, stained from years of anointments. You kneel. You wait. He takes one loaf, raises it toward the sky, then presses it to his forehead. A silent moment. Then a crumb is broken. The incense reacts with the warm interior, releasing a scent you've never smelled before. Sweet, smoky, bread-like, but distant. Like something half-remembered. Something... The priest nods again. You may go. And just like that, the gods have eaten. You walk back to the bakery courtyard lighter than before. As if some part of your labor was released with that rising smoke. The others don't ask how it went. They don't need to. The gods didn't strike anyone down. That's considered a win. Now begins the second bake. This one's different. No incense, no symmetry, no linen veils or thumbprint prayers. These loaves are for the real world, for workers hauling blocks at the quarry, for scribes hunched in shadowy libraries, for ferry drivers and fishermen and shepherds and old women who trade dried fish for breakfast. The dough is rougher now, less precious, made with yesterday's leftover grain or barley mixed with beans, sometimes lentils. Sometimes the kids throw in wild herbs they've foraged, sour grass, mint, pepper, leaf. It's not uniform, but it feeds. The oven, now steady, accepts the loaves without fanfare. They go in blistered and imperfect. They come out crackling and proud. Some are black at the edges, others tear as they cool. You ask if they should be tossed. The baker just shrugs. Bread doesn't have to be beautiful to feed someone. You carry the first basket out with two others down the alley behind the granary where two barefoot boys wait with donkeys. The loaves are loaded into baskets on either side of the animals. Some are marked with reed tags. One is tied with a strip of dyed wool, someone's favorite maybe. You follow one of the boys as he heads toward the Nile docks. Along the way, he hands off 3 loaves, one to a blind old man under a fig tree, one to a girl selling salt fish, one to a man with a chipped spear who nods solemnly. There is no money, only movement. Bread flows through this city like breath. You return to the courtyard with your hands empty, your shoulders warm, and your stomach rumbling. But still no one eats yet. There is a pause. A settling, a quiet moment in the late morning where the courtyard fills with the smell of smoke dough and dust. Where everyone stops even just for 5 minutes to sit on a stone step or a crumbling bench and exist. You join them, you stretch your legs, you close your eyes, and somewhere nearby someone tears a crusty heel of bread in half, dips it in oil, and passes you a piece. No gods, no ceremony, just a crust, and the tiniest, sleepiest grin from the baker who handed it to you. The air in the courtyard is changing again. Not cooler, not busier, just sweeter. You blink off the nap haze, still chewing the last bit of your crust, when a sudden burst of energy rolls through the bakery like a festival drumbeat. Someone opens a jar of date syrup. Someone else uncovers a bowl of figs mashed with honey. And in the back corner, a small woven basket reveals, carefully wrapped in linen, the secret ingredient of the hour-dried pomegranate seeds. This isn't just baking anymore, it's celebration. Today, you're told is a feast day, not one of the major ones that shuts down the temples, but a smaller local observance. Something to do with a river goddess and a fig tree that never fell in the flood. You're not expected to understand the full story, you're just expected to bake the cakes. And these are not your average flat loaves for farmers. These are sweet loaves, delicate, perfumed, symbolic, and frankly way more fun to make than the usual bricks of barley and ash. You're handed a round of dough, slightly lighter than the rest, already mixed with fig paste and a hint of date syrup. It's warm in your palms, sticky but yielding. The woman beside you dusts it with cinnamon. Yes, real cinnamon traded up from the south, and nods toward a set of clay molds. The shapes, goddesses. You press the dough gently into one. The mold is carved with the image of Hathor. Wide eyes, gentle smile, cow horns curling above her head. A goddess of music, joy, and very importantly, pleasure, including the edible and inedible kind. You press smooth and tip the mold over. The dough lands with a soft thud on the mat, perfectly shaped. A tiny, smiling goddess you've just crafted with your own hands. Don't get too proud, someone mutters. She'll puff up sideways if you don't watch her. You make another and another. Some loaves are shaped like animals. Birds, fish, little cats curled into balls. Others are twisted into spirals, scored with reeds or topped with fruit. These are showpieces baked not just to nourish, but to impress. You ask where they're going. Temple table, someone replies. And maybe a few to the vizier's wife if we're lucky. Lucky for getting to keep one. The baking process is different for these. The oven is wiped down, the sand refreshed. A layer of palm frond ash is spread beneath the sweet loaves to stop them from burning. These are delicate. Too much heat and they'll blister. Too little and they'll sag. You watch as one baker brushes the loaves with honey water before loading them in. That's what gives them their shine. Historians still debate how sweet ancient Egyptian sweets really were. Sugar, as we know, it didn't exist here. But dates, figs, carob, and honey provided plenty of natural sweetness. Some recipes mention spices, cinnamon, coriander, even crushed cloves, though trade routes made those rare. What they did have, though, was time. These loaves aren't rushed, they're coaxed, like lullabies you can eat. The scent that rises from the oven is unlike anything you've experienced before. It's not just bread, it's story. Warm fig, burnt honey. The faintest edge of citrus from something someone smuggled in last week, dried peel from an orchard across the Nile. You help turn the loaves gently with flat wooden paddles. One sticks slightly to the sand. Another hisses as a pomegranate seed bursts open in the heat. A cat circles the edge of the oven like it's in love. When the loaves come out, there is silence, not reverent, just hungry. The goddess loaves are placed on reed mats and brushed again, this time with oil and a dusting of sesame. They shine like bronzed statues. You could almost bow to one. Don't, someone warns, she'll think she's better than you. You snort and they grin. 3 loaves are wrapped in linen and sent to the shrine. 2 are packed in a sealed basket bound for the vizier's estate. The rest, they vanish. Not stolen, claimed. One by the old baker with cracked feet and a laugh like a door hinge. One by the boy who's been stoking the fire since sunrise. One is slipped under a bench for the priest's dog, someone mutters. And one is handed to you, not ceremoniously, not with a speech, just a look that says you did the work. You bite into it. The crust gives way to warm fig, sticky but not cloying. The cinnamon hums in the background. And somewhere in the middle is a pomegranate seed that pops like a secret. You close your eyes, you chew slowly. This is not fuel, this is joy. And somewhere in the way, the heat wraps the courtyard in the way The smoke curls toward the sky in the quiet grins of the people around you. You know Hathor is smiling too. The sweet loaves are cooling now, stacked like treasure on a woven tray, their golden crusts catching what's left of the midday light. The scent hangs in the air, a warm blend of date ash and honeyed patience. And you can't stop smelling your hands. There's no rest, of course. Not really. Because even on feast days, bread keeps moving. Two boys with sunburned shoulders and dust-caked feet appear at the edge of the courtyard, trailing a sleepy-looking donkey that snorts like it's already bored. The older boy carries a ledger of some kind, papyrus frayed at the edges, with crude symbols indicating delivery destinations. The younger one carries nothing but confidence. You're handed a bundle of loaves wrapped in linen and tied with twisted reed cord. A second bundle follows, then a third. Each is labeled with a streak of pigment red for the temple green, for the administrative house blue, for the riverside merchants. There's even a yellow mark for the brewery, where bread will be soaked, strained, and fermented into something far stronger than tea. You're told, go with them, learn the paths. So you do. You follow the boys out of the courtyard, past the drying herbs, and the tired cat, and the bucket of ashes from the morning bake. Out into the winding alleys of the workers' quarter, where the walls are sun-bleached, and the ground is packed hard from thousands of feet. The donkey trudges forward like it's seen too much. You pause at the first stop, a small shrine with painted lotus motifs on the walls. A priest meets you. Squinting nods once, then carefully lifts the linen and inspects the loaves. Still warm, he says. Then without breaking eye contact, he tears one in half and tosses it into a clay bowl beside the door, an offering. To who? Probably every god who's paying attention today. The next stop is a scribe's home, neat, orderly shaded. The loaves here are stacked on a reed mat by the door. You don't see the scribe, just a boy in linen who grunts, thanks, and vanishes inside. Doesn't like people. The older delivery boy explains. Only bread. You get that. The third stop is down by the river. A cluster of boats moored lazily against the banks, their sails limp in the still heat. Here the loaves are for crews about to set off downstream. You watch as one man tucks around into a cloth pouch like it's treasure, while another bites into his before you've even turned away. These are the eaters, not priests, not officials, just people who work hard and need calories. And these loaves, dense, crusty, alive with ferment and fire, are built for them. One old woman reaches for hers with trembling fingers. She holds it to her nose, breathes in deeply, and says, "Smells like someone listened this time." You blink. You look back at your hands. Maybe she means you. Historians often focus on temple bread, the perfect, the polished, the sacred. But it's this kind, the river bread, the builder's bread, that fed the country. Carried in baskets, traded for oil, bartered for fish. Eaten before prayers. Smeared with garlic paste and shared between strangers. It is in every way the people's perfume. You make a dozen more stops. A potter's studio, a washer's yard, even a guard post by the city wall, where a loaf is handed over with a grunt and no words at all. Oh. Then at the final house, something different. A tiny girl answers the door. No taller than the loaf you're carrying. She says nothing, but opens her hand, offering you a stone. A small polished thing with no real value. She thinks it's payment. You kneel, place the bread in her hand, and tuck the stone into your pocket without a word. Fair trade. The donkey snorts again, tired, hungry, possibly over the entire concept of labor. You return to the bakery courtyard, just as the sky begins to tilt toward evening. The air is drier now. The heat has faded, and the loaves have all found homes. You expected applause, maybe a thank you. Instead, you're handed a broom. Because bread doesn't care if you're tired. Bread keeps going. So you sweep. You sweep the flour dust, the fallen seeds, the tiny pebbles tracked in from alleyways. You sweep around the ovens, under the baskets, along the corners where cats have started to curl. And as you work, you think about how this delivery circuit, this slow looping path connected people, not just to each other, but to you. Your hands mixed that dough. Your sweat flavored that crust. Your mistake became someone's dinner. Bread, you've learned, doesn't need credit. It just needs to arrive. And today it did, by now. The sun is a gentle smear behind the rooftops, dipping toward the western hills, where it will spend the night with Ra on his bark. The courtyard glows amber. The shadows grow longer, and the bakery hums with that late afternoon lull, the kind that makes you sit on a warm stone step without meaning to, your hands dusty, your stomach somewhere between satisfied and sunburned. And then someone claps. Lunch. Well, not lunch like you imagine it. This is crusts and lentils, leftover ends, the broken bottoms, a bowl of pickled radish slices. And something that might once have been goat, now more jerky than meat. You sit with the others under the fig tree at the back of the courtyard, where the light filters through fat leaves and dances on your forearms. The stone beneath you is warm. The shade is uneven. The laughter immediate. This is when the bakers become people again. One tells a story about a cat who learned to steal dough before it baked. Another impersonates the temple priest trying to chew barley loaves with one good tooth. There's teasing. Someone's sandals go missing for 5 minutes. You suspect the donkey. A boy hums a song with no words. The tune winds between your ribs like sunlight through reeds. You dip your crust in lentils, thick, salty, garlicky, and realize your jaw is sore from smiling. One woman passes a bundle of date paste wrapped in fig leaf. She breaks it apart with her fingers and doles it out wordlessly. You take yours and try not to inhale it. Fails instantly. It tastes like everything good and nothing fancy. There's a reason this isn't the part that survives in temple records or tomb art. Because this is too real, too ordinary, too beautiful to record, and too common to forget. You ask a quiet question. Do we always eat this late? Someone shrugs. Depends when the gods finish eating. You nod. That makes sense. Of course it does. Historians still debate how laborers were paid, whether in measured rations of bread and beer, or by weight or status or whim. But every record agrees on one thing. Bread fed everyone, including the ones who made it. You glance at the patch on your knee from when you slipped by the basin. The flour is still stuck in the weave. You could scrape it off, but you don't. You let it stay. The fig tree shakes a little in the breeze. A single ripe fruit drops to the ground with a faint thud. You think about grabbing it. So does the cat. You both hesitate. The cat wins. Of course it does. After the meal, the courtyard shifts again. This is the repair hour. Not dramatic, not loud, but absolutely necessary. You're handed a bowl of clay-wet grey gritty. It smells like wet leaves and elbow grease. The oven's outer wall you see has cracked slightly from today's heat. Not enough to fail, but enough to matter. Your task, patch it. With your hands. No tools, just fingers and time. You kneel beside the oven and press the clay into the fissure. It resists at first, dry against wet, like two strangers pretending they're friends. But as you press, the edges soften. The wall accepts the patch. You smooth the surface, pat, shape, seal, like a wound dressed in silence. There's a joke somewhere behind you. Don't fall in. You glance over your shoulder. Someone grins. Another adds, we've lost better bakers to that fire. They're lying. You hope. Still, you scoot back just a little. Once the patch sets, it will harden into the wall. Become part of it. Like every patch before it. Layers upon layers of correction, endurance, survival. This oven has burned bread for 3 generations. It has survived storms, thieves, cracked pots, and a boy who once tried to cook fish inside it just to see. And it will survive you too. You press your palm into the repaired clay, not hard, not deep, just enough to leave a curve. No one stops you. They've all done it before. Tomorrow, someone else will patch over it. But today, it's yours. Evening slips in without asking. It doesn't knock, doesn't announce itself. It just arrives like a cat curling into your lap while pretending not to want attention. The sky fades from amber to grey blue, and the last heat of the oven settles into the courtyard floor like a sigh. You're resting again, but it's not a break. It's a shift, because now begins the evening bake. You expected things to slow down, and they do sort of. The energy changes, less urgency, more rhythm, the rush of deliveries, the heat of the midday oven, the chaos of the goddess loaves, that's done. But now come the flatbreads. The ones that feed boatmen sailing by starlight. The ones scribes will chew quietly while copying accounts by oil lamp. The ones that get wrapped in damp cloth and stashed in belts before a long desert ride. Simple, thin, portable, eternal. You return to the mixing basin now cleaned and watch as someone pours water into a bowl of flour with quick practiced motion. No starter this time. No resting. No fuss. This dough is meant for speed. A pinch of salt, a swirl of oil, a handful of something that might be crushed coriander or maybe just leftover herbs swept up from the prep table. You're handed a lump the size of your fist. Roll it, they say. You do. Flat, flatter, flattest. Not perfect, but close enough. The surface is scored with a reed comb, just shallow enough to stop bubbles from forming too wildly. You slide it onto a paddle and wait for the signal. A nod. Then the oven opens again, revealing its glowing mouth. The flatbread bakes quickly, 1 minute, maybe 2. You barely look away before someone's already flipping it with a hooked stick. The crust browns, the edges crisp. Tiny air bubbles pucker and hiss. You breathe in. This is a different kind of bread. Not glorious, not ceremonial, just needed. You help shape more pressing and rolling, passing and turning. The stack beside you grows steadily. They're thinner than your palm, browned unevenly edges, curled like autumn leaves. One boy adds sesame seeds to his. Someone else grates a knob of something pungent, garlic, onion. You're not sure. The smell is sharp and comforting. Historians sometimes refer to these as journey loaves or sailor's bread. Quick to cook, easy to carry, usually eaten with oil or a smear of bean paste, or dipped straight into whatever stew happened to be bubbling nearby. You think of the ferry workers down by the docks, of the scribes leaning over scrolls by candlelight, of the tired guard on the southern wall whose feet haven't left the dust since noon. And you hope they know someone cared when these were made. That someone needed quickly flipped cleanly and packed them while the sky turned dark and soft. You try a piece still warm. It crunches slightly, then gives. The inside is chewy, the crust kissed with smoke. It tastes like dusk, like utility, like a promise that you're not done yet, but you will be soon. More loaves are wrapped in linen and placed into baskets, this time carried not by donkeys, but by young runners, barefoot, agile, fast. They vanish into the maze of alleys, and the bakery quiets again. The fire is low now. You help spread the ash. This is a ritual too, not just cleanup, but a kind of blessing. The ash keeps the oven floor smooth, absorbs moisture, discourages cracks. You scatter it evenly, brushing it in slow circles, like painting the earth back to sleep. Someone hands you a cup of water. Another passes a sliver of dried fig. You eat in silence, and in that quiet moment, the world outside feels distant, smaller. Because here, with fire on your arms and flour in your hair, you've done something ancient. You've fed the night. Not with grand loaves or temple offerings, just with thin bread, quick hands, and a little bit of smoke. The courtyard dims. A lantern is lit. A cat stretches long and lean and disappears through a broken brick in the wall. You're told you can go now. Rest, sleep. But something holds you in place. You want to see the last round go in. You want to watch them bubble and puff and bake just right before vanishing into the world beyond. You want to remember that even after the priests are full and the scribes are quiet and the oven's mouth yawns wide one last time, bread keeps going. And tonight it carries a piece of you. The stars are out now, freckling the sky with quiet confidence. The moon is low and bright, a bent thumbnail of light leaning over the edge of the world. The bakery glows softly with the last embers of the oven, and the air smells less like food and more like what happens after food: ash crust and quiet satisfaction. This is the part no one writes about. The after. The small tasks that happen when the fire dies down and the gods, the donkeys, and the hungry are all asleep. You're back in the courtyard, broom in hand, feet, dusty hair flattened against your scalp with a fine crust of flour. You've never looked worse, you've never felt more useful. Your task now: count the mistakes, the cracked loaves, the overbaked ones, the flatbreads that tore or bubbled or burned at the edge, the offering rounds that never quite rose, the ones that fell against each other in the oven and fused like doughy Siamese twins. They are not wasted, never wasted. You gather them carefully into a wide clay bowl, one that has held generations of almosts. Each flawed loaf has its own story. Too much oil, not enough rest fire, too high, dough too cold. You learn to read them like a palm reader reads lines on a hand. This one was folded too soon. That one forgot to breathe. You tap each with a knuckle to hear its hollow drumbeat, the secret voice that lives in the crust. Some sound strong despite their odd shape. Others are soft and uneven but smell heavenly. Some bread breaks on purpose, a baker says beside you. You blink. What? She shrugs. Makes it easier to share. That stays with you. You help sort the broken bread into 3 piles. One for the workers, the ugly but edible stack. One for regrinding to become tomorrow's flour filler. One for the animals, and yes, that includes the cats. The cats approve of this arrangement. You sweep the baking stones. You rinse the mixing basins with warm water and smooth rocks. You stack the brushes and paddles along the wall in a careful line, handles facing the same way, as though the tools themselves need order to sleep. Someone lights a bundle of dried herbs. Sweet rush, crushed acacia pods. Maybe mint. The smoke curls lazily over the courtyard, not to cleanse it, but to mark the end of the day, like punctuation. You sit again beneath the fig tree this time, with your back against the trunk. The leaves whisper gently above you, and the ground is still warm. A fig drops near your foot. This time you get to it before the cat. You eat it slowly, warm, soft, messy. The sweetness sticks to your teeth. A perfect fig. No ceremony, no offering. Just you. Someone beside you is humming again that same tuneless song from earlier. A lullaby for the bricks. You don't know the words and maybe there aren't any, but it fits. Across the courtyard, the youngest boy has fallen asleep, half on, half off a basket. No one moves him. One of the older women drapes a cloth over his shoulders and keeps walking. Historians rarely mention naps in their scrolls, or cracked loaves, or the woman who always arranges the tools in size order because it feels better that way. But now those are the things that keep the world running. A baker taps your shoulder. Time to tally. You follow her into the storeroom. dark, dry, lined with shelves and woven bins. She lifts a smooth clay tablet and begins to press symbols into it with a stylus. Each mark is a number, a category, a memory. 7 loaves for the shrine, 24 for the dock, 3 broken sent to grind, 1 loaf eaten by a cat, 1 loaf saved for the morning shift, 1 small round finger shaped left beside the mixing basin. Yours, you smile. She doesn't mention it. She doesn't have to. The tablet is set aside. Someone will carry it to the scribe's house tomorrow. Maybe they'll add it to the record. Maybe not. But the bread happened. And that's enough. You step back into the courtyard. Someone's pouring water on the oven floor, just a little, just enough to cool it without cracking the clay. Steam rises like a curtain. You sit and breathe and listen to the sound of fire becoming memory. The courtyard is nearly still now, like a held breath. The oven has gone quiet, its last glow smothered in steam and ash. The baskets have been emptied, the tools cleaned, the tall jar of date syrup sealed with wax again. And in this gentle nothingness, the bakery begins to fold itself into silence. But not sleep, not yet. Because there is still one more task, preparing for tomorrow. The cycle is relentless, kind, predictable. Like the Nile, it does not pause. And just as the river will rise again, so will the dough. You find yourself beside the oldest of the bakers. She's nearly silent, her back slightly bent, her hair bound tightly in a cloth the color of flour that's been used one too many times. In her hands is a small clay pot. You know what's inside before she opens it. The mother, the starter. It smells stronger now, sharp and wet and slightly alive. Like breath on a mirror or a memory you didn't mean to keep. She stirs it slowly, as if not to wake it too fast. Then she adds water. Not much, just enough to keep it supple. Then a handful of flour. Then another stir. Clockwise always. You ask why. Because the sun moves that way. Fair enough. She taps the edge of the jar with her knuckle. A low thud. You remember that sound? It means the clay isn't too dry. It'll hold overnight. She hands you a clean linen scrap and tells you to cover the jar. You do. She nods. The mother sleeps. You didn't think you'd feel anything toward a jar of half-rotted flour paste, and yet, here you are, a little emotional over yeast. You carry the jar to the cool room, the one dug slightly into the earth lined with stones and shaded by mats. It's not cold exactly, but it's enough. The jar is placed on a flat stone surrounded by 3 others, each a bit older, crusted at the rim, stained by generations of invisible life. You realize these are all starters, a family of them, some active, some sleeping, some maybe just waiting. Not every day needs the same voice, someone whispers behind you. You nod like that makes immediate sense. The mother you helped feed tonight won't be used until morning. She'll rest here quietly, fermenting, growing stronger, stranger, ready to lift dough that doesn't even exist yet. You sit for a while in the cool room. It smells like earth and hope and leftover fig seeds. Outside, the fig tree sways slightly in the night wind. The cats are back, 2 of them now. One curls on the bench, the other disappears into the oven like it's returning to a womb of warmth. You stretch your arms, your shoulders ache, your calves feel like you walked a mountain. And you'd do it again. Because today you were part of something ancient, not dramatic or famous, but eternal. The shaping of flour and water into sustenance. The gift that doesn't need to be pretty to matter. You step out of the storeroom and someone hands you a small flat loaf wrapped in cloth. For you. You raise an eyebrow. It's yours. From the cracked pile. But this one's lucky. You accept it with both hands. It's still warm. The surface is blistered in places, soft in others, and smells faintly of coriander and maybe a bit of burnt fig. You think I made this? Even if the dough was someone else's, even if the fire wasn't yours, even if the shape was a little off, and the crust rose wrong, and a cat stepped on one corner, it's still yours. You carry it to the bench beneath the fig tree and tear off a piece. It's chewy, tastes like shadow and heat, like a full day baked into a quiet thing. You sit there long enough for your fingers to go still, long enough for the stars to blink wider, long enough to believe that tomorrow might smell like this too. And if it does, you'll be ready. The fig tree rustles above you, leaves whispering like someone gently sifting flour in the dark. The last piece of your cracked lucky loaf rests in your hand, cool now. The air has taken its heat, but left the taste a little sour, a little sweet, just enough to remind you of the day behind you. Someone nudges your foot with theirs. Come on, they say final sweep. You groan softly because your bones feel like old tools. But you rise anyway. This isn't the kind of place where tasks are dismissed. They're inherited like a dough that gets passed down, shaped by everyone who touches it. You're handed a bundle of frayed cloths, still damp from the last rinse. The others have already begun scrubbing the mixing basin, tightening the reed lids on the flour jars, rewrapping the tools in linen. There's no list, no shouting, just doing. You wipe down the bench where the sweet loaves were shaped. Faint smears of fig and honey still cling to the surface like the memory of celebration. You don't scrub too hard. You like that it remembers. Next, the flatbread station. Little rings of ash around the edges. A few sesame seeds stuck to the stone. A tiny crescent of burnt crust shaped like a smile. You don't even try to remove it. The older bakers sweep the oven mouth clean with a dry palm fan. The children, finally roused from their post-lunch collapse, chase each other between the baskets, shrieking with laughter, until a single look from the head baker silences them instantly. Not cruel, just powerful. That's the kind of command you only earn from feeding people. Historians rarely wrote about the closing of bakeries. The ledgers stop at numbers. The scrolls list output, not aftermath. But this quiet communal cleanup, this is the ritual. You're handed a small brush made of bundled reeds. What's this for? Corners, the woman says, where the flour hides. And it does. You kneel and sweep out the tiniest pale drifts from between the stones, wondering how many bakers before you have done this exact gesture. 1,000, 10,000. Bread isn't just made with ingredients, it's made with routine, with care that accumulates. Like dough, left to rest, time becomes part of the flavor. A boy trips and drops a bowl. It doesn't break, but it cracks a hairline line from rim to base. He looks up, eyes wide. No one yells. The oldest baker takes it, turns it over in her hand and says, "It held enough." Then she places it on the repair pile. Even tools, it seems, are allowed to falter. Even tools are forgiven. You feel your eyes sting a little. Someone hands you a final linen cloth and a jar of oil, thin, slightly scented. You wipe down the tools one by one. The brushes, the paddles, the measuring sticks that aren't measured by numbers, but by fingers, ears, instinct. Each item is put away in a clay pot or hung from a nail or wrapped in cloth like something sacred, which it is. You reach the paddle you used earlier, your first. The edge is darkened. The wood smells like smoke and barley and sun. You linger on it just a moment longer, then you hang it on the wall. The fig tree rustles again. A breeze finds its way into the courtyard, lifting dust and scent. And something else. Something unnameable into the dark. You hear soft footsteps, then the low thump of a full flour jar being sealed with a clay lid. The day is almost folded shut, but there's one thing left. You're guided back to the mixing basin, empty now, clean, but beside it, a tiny ball of dough, round, quiet, waiting. This is yours, they say. You blink, you mixed, you shaped, you learned. But you're part of the bake now. You kneel, you cradle the dough in your palms. It's smooth and soft and slightly warm, like breath or thought or potential. You place it in a small clay bowl. You cover it with a cloth. And for the first time all day, you feel something begin again. Not just end, because bread like breath circles. And tomorrow someone will uncover this dough and mix it with more and bake it with care and maybe pass it on again. There's hardly any light left now. Just a dim glow from the oil lamp above the oven arch and a sliver of moonlight spilling through the cracked courtyard gate. The world feels folded in softer at the edges. Somewhere nearby, a frog croaks once. Then, silence. You're standing at the water jar, rinsing the dough from your arms, watching thin white ribbons swirl away like old memories. This is the final wash. It doesn't just clean, it resets. One by one, the bakers do the same. The water darkens, faintly tinted with flour and ash. No one hurries. Everyone's hands move slowly, like they're already half asleep. You rub your palms together, noticing every scrape and sore spot from the day each one earned. Nearby, a pot of tea is heating over a bed of coals. Not for caffeine, for calm. It smells of chamomile and fennel and something slightly sharp, lemongrass maybe. You're handed a cup. You sip. It tastes like winding down. Like the first exhale after a long fast. You sit again under the fig tree. The branches above hold still. The moonlight filters through them like lace. A bowl is passed around. Inside, small crusts. The ones too dark for temple trays. The bits torn off the ends of flatbreads. The sweet lumps of fruit-pocked dough that didn't rise quite right. Last bite, someone whispers. You take one, it's dry, but good. You chew slowly, and the sounds of the day, the grinding, the slapping of dough, the shouts, the huffs, the crackle of fire fall away. All that's left is breath and the smell of smoke, and the memory of hands. A woman beside you hums again, this time low and steady. The others join. Not a song exactly, just tone, vibration, like the echo of bread still singing from inside the oven. Historians might have called this an after prayer. You just call it peace. The youngest boy falls asleep again, but this time no one wakes him. He's curled beside the wall arms around a cracked mixing bowl, like it's a favorite toy. Someone drapes a cloth over his feet. The baker who led you through your first mix stands behind you now. She doesn't say anything for a long time. Then, you did well. You turn startled. Really? She shrugs. Your dough didn't fight you? That's enough. You don't know what to say. She walks away. Is the highest praise you've had all day. You drink the rest of your tea. Lukewarm now. Still sweet. And in your lap is that same cloth-wrapped flatbread from earlier. You unwrap it again just to touch it. You don't eat it. Just feel its weight. You shaped it. You watched it bake. You counted it. You kept it. It reminds you that your hands can create something that outlasts the fire. You wrap it again. Tuck it under your tunic. And close your eyes for a moment. The courtyard is nearly empty. The tools are stowed. The oven is sleeping. And you are changed. Not by ritual, not by revelation, just by repetition. By rising early, by kneading dough with your feet, by brushing ash from a stone floor with a reed. You understand now. This bakery isn't just a place where food is made. It's where people remember how to care. Quietly, consistently. Not for glory, but for the warmth of knowing that tomorrow's hunger has already been thought of. And you were part of that. The stars are higher now. The tea is gone. The lamp flickers once, then steadies. And somewhere, deep in the cool room, the mother stirs again. The bakery has gone completely quiet now. Not silent, just settled. The kind of stillness that doesn't feel like emptiness, but fullness. Completion. A room that's been well used and well loved, sighing into sleep. You are the last one standing. The coals in the corner have cooled to dull red beads. The walls, once hot enough to cook air, are now just warm to the touch. You trail your fingers along the oven's rim one final time, not to check its temperature, but to say good night. There's one task left. The oldest baker gestures to a small mound of dough resting in a bowl beside the basin. It's barely risen, just a soft pillow of possibility. It's been waiting patiently while everything else wound down. This is the first loaf of tomorrow. No ceremony, no chant, no ink on papyrus, just dough. And you lift it gently. It feels different from all the others, not because of its shape or texture, but because of its timing. It hasn't been rushed. It's been left to breathe, to grow in silence while the world turned its back. You set it on the mat beside the oven, not yet, just near, to feel the last warmth of today before tomorrow begins. You shape it with care. A simple round, nothing fancy. You press a thumbprint in the center, not too deep, just enough that when it rises, it remembers you. Then you cover it with a soft cloth, one that smells faintly of the tea from earlier. You smooth it down gently, as though tucking in a child. Then you sit, and you wait, not for the dough to rise, but to rest with it. Because in this final moment between the baked and the unbaked, between flame and ash, between today and tomorrow, you realize this is what it means to feed people. Not to finish, but to prepare, to leave something behind that will be ready for someone else to shape, to bake, to share. A continuity you can hold in your hand. You glance around the courtyard, the reed mats, the half-swept corners, the broom leaning in the shadows like it knows it'll be needed soon. The cats are asleep. The wind has stopped asking questions, and the stars still watching. You rise, stretch, breathe in deep. The dough rests, waiting for the sun. And now so do you. So now the courtyard grows dim in your mind. The scent of warm flour fades to memory. The fire's glow softens to shadow. You've walked through an entire day in ancient Egypt, not as a ruler or scribe, but as a baker. A person who shapes silence into sustenance, who turns earth and water and heat into hope. Let it all fall away now. Let the grind of stone, the hiss of the oven, the rhythm of dough and ash dissolve into stillness. Let your hands go still. Let your breath settle. Let your thoughts rise and fall like loaves in the dark. You have been part of something older than kings, wiser than scrolls, more sacred than gold. Because every person you met today will wake tomorrow with bread in their hands. And that bread, it carries you inside it. So let your body soften now like dough under cloth. Let your bones be warm bricks cooling gently. Let your thoughts be loaves resting before the fire. The world is quiet now. The oven sleeps. The stars hum softly above the fig tree. And the first loaf of tomorrow waits for you in silence.